In this demonstration, I'm going to show you how to set up email addresses, how to set up your Outbound SMTP server email, and how to create email notifications. Email notifications are useful for notifying various users within your organization regarding the creation, the editing, the status change of work orders, as well as automatically sending the new work orders to whoever it was assigned to and or whoever requested the work. Additionally, you can set up email notifications for downtime, and this can be based on the severity. So maybe you only want high priority downtime emails being sent out to specific personnel. And then lastly, on the purchasing side, you can also have email notifications that will automatically notify the appropriate personnel under certain conditions. So to begin with, we need to have email addresses set up for our various users. There's a couple of ways to do it, and I'm not going to go into this too deeply, but I do want to give you an overview. Any of the things that I don't cover in depth here, be certain to email us at support@matesmart.com and request your own personalized demonstration. We're happy to do that. Okay, so I've got the screen kind of shrunk down for this demo, so these buttons are kind of over here on the side. But I'm going to go into this particular screen where we set up our technicians. And we'll notice we have a list of technicians here. And some of these are connected to email. It's not a required field, but we're going to work with this test email address here today. And then we also have some others that we're going to be using. So if you want to set up an email, simply select the row, enter the email address, and then click Save. And that particular technician, as it's called in this case, will have an email at that point. The other way you can set up email addresses is through the program configuration screen, and that would be through your requesters. So if they're not technicians or engineers or whatever you may be calling them, you can also set up what we call requesters. And these are typically non-maintenance personnel that are requesting work, like a repair ticket or something to that effect. Okay, so all these emails will end up being available to you once we have them set up in here. All right, so the next thing we need to do, once we have some email addresses, is set up our email. And this has to do with the outbound email. Now those addresses we set up previously, typically they're going to be for inbound. So those will be recipients of email that you're sending. Whereas what we're looking at now is how MateSmart is able to access your emailing system on your system there locally to send out email. Okay, so the email has to be configured for outbound email. And in this case, we're using an SMTP rather. And just here's a test one we set up that we can use. And I'm not going to get into all the particulars of this. Again, you can kind of look at it and basically see what's here. In order to set your own up, you'd want to go into your email account settings on your machine there or your server and determine what outbound email configuration parameters are required so that MateSmart can access it and then send email directly from MateSmart. Okay, once we've set this up, we can test it. And I have some test parameters here. You should also go to your options and set up a default sender. In this case, we just have one, and it's called test@matesmart.com. So we have a default sender. And so what will happen is if you only have one administrator settings set in here, one outbound email setting set up, the program will use the default all the time. Alternatively, if we had set up, I'm going back and forth here, if we had set up particular users with their own email, then when they logged in, it would use their outbound email. Okay. That's useful if you really want the people to know where these notifications or other emails coming from. Otherwise, you can just send it all from one place. In the case of just work assignments and so on, the way we have it going here, probably the simplest way and the quickest way to get to where you want to get to. All right, so back to this screen. This is just for testing the email. So what I can do is I can pick one of these accounts. I'll just say this one, sales@mainsmart.com, which is a valid email address. This test one here is actually what we're using for our Outbound server at the moment. But I'll go ahead and send to this one. And then when I click test, okay, the program generated a line here in the data grid, and it's saying success, that the email was sent out. So apparently it was sent out, and that's basically that. Now what we can do, if we want, is we can check here on this account, and it may take a moment to come in. I don't know if it's going to come in right away, but at some point, depending on how these things work their way through the system, it should show up here. And I'm not saying it here yet, but it will show up here. And actually, that one was sent to sales, and I'm under test at the moment. So let's go back to our sales. And our new email is in there. We can see the inbox there. So there it is. Okay. Okay, so it did send it out. So we know that it's connecting, and that's great. So now we're ready to go with our setup of our email notification system. So that's going to be under the same screen. We're still under this, our program configuration. But this time we're going to go to a different dialog screen. It'll be the email notifications dialog screen. All right, so this is very simple to use and I think fairly intuitive. We start by clicking the new button. We pick the event type, and I'm just going to say work order created. Who do we want it to go to? I'll go ahead and send it to test. So I'm sending it from and to test, which probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense in the real world, but that way we can kind of look at that account and see what we have there. We could also check one of these items, notify technician, in which case MainSmart would look and see who the technician was, and it would go ahead and send the email to whoever the work order was assigned to. Okay, and that's probably one you would use more. So let me go ahead and check that one as well. Then we can also add email addresses on the fly here. So if you have someone you want to notify that's not configured in your system, maybe someone outside your organization, you can do that by just adding the email address on the fly. Okay, so that basically configured what happens when a work order is created. So there are some other options: status change, work orders edited. What about a request? Maybe you want all requests to be funneled through, say, a maintenance foreman, so they can look at them and say, is this a valid request? Do I need to go get more information? And so on, before they convert it to a full work order. All right, a couple of others I'll just touch on briefly. We have purchasing. There's different events here, requisitions created, RFQs created, and so on. And then we also have downtime events, okay, for equipment breakdowns. So if a downtime occurs and it creates a record, then you can pick what severity to send and who to send to. Okay, so that's our notifications. There's also email notification history. See, this will pull up another screen, show who was notified, was it successfully sent, and so on. All right, so at that, let's try this thing out and see what happens. So if I go in to my work order screen, and let me just go back to my plant setup. We had this one here for sales, and we had this one here for Charlie and David, our two players here, I think. So let me go back here and create a new work order. So I click new, and I'm just going to keep it fairly simple, but I will pick a technician. I'll pick David, and we'll call it a emergency test. And then of course we need to put in this required field. I'm just going to call it C comments. All right, and we could populate some of the other fields as needed. So before I actually save this, there's one more step we might want to double check that I neglected on the program configuration screen, and that is to make sure that the program is actually looking for event notifications. Now, it's not by default going to always do this. We need to check this checkbox. This will cause the program, in this case we're set to 1 minute scan. Every 1 minute the program is going to look for an email that needs to be sent out based on our event notifier. Okay, so we've done all that, and I'm going to go ahead and click Save, and at some point we should get an email sent to us. Okay, so if we check our email now, see what, okay, so it did come in. This is the email that was sent out, and let's just take a look at it and see what's in there. And it's, you know, there's not a whole lot here. It's basically telling you who it's sent to. Okay, it was sent to both. Because the reason it was sent to both is because we picked one person to send to, and then we also chose to send it to whoever the email was assigned to, or the work order rather, was assigned to. And that particular person was the second email in here. So we can go ahead and open this up and just look at it. And essentially this is what you're going to get sent, or whoever the recipients are, I should say, will be sent a work order. So that's basically how the email notification system in MateSmart works.